Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. I'm Dustin. I've got another Fantasy Football University video for you. Fantasy Football University. It's an app that we created. Click on the link in the card or in the description to check it out. Basically helps you from all the way from the very beginning stages all the way to the championship week to help you win your league. Go ahead and check it out. Thank you to Fantasy Jocks for sponsoring this video series. So in these videos, we're just taking very small snippets from the app, putting them in video form, just kind of showing you kind of what the app's all about and to give you a little bit of information. In this video, we're talking about the pros and cons between snake and auction drafts and just kind of, if you're new to fantasy, figuring out what type of draft is going to be best for you and your league. Let's start with snake draft. These are pretty simple. Let's just use a 10-team league for an example and for this video. You have 10 teams, everyone's assigned a draft position, 1 through 10. And you just kind of go back and forth, kind of like a snake. So you go 1 through 10, and then the 10th team has the first pick in the second round, and it just goes back and forth all the way through until everyone's drafted their team. So some of the pros for a snake draft: it's simple to set up. There's not much to it. Another pro: it's easy to understand. That's why it's a very good draft type for beginners. And another pro is the draft times are typically shorter. Just the way the format is, things just move quickly. Normally there's a timer, where people have to make their pick. So it just moves pretty quickly. And in both of these draft types, snakes and auctions, you can do them online or live in person. They both work for that, but especially online for snake drafts, they move pretty quickly. Some of the cons for snake drafts is there's limited strategy. You're very kind of handcuffed to what pick that you have. If you have the 10th pick and you wanted the best player in the league, you're not going to get him because he's going to be picked, because there are going to be 9 people picked before you even get to go. Limited flexibility is another con, just because, again, you are just kind of based off of what pick you have, especially in the early rounds. You can be sometimes you're almost forced to just take certain players because there's just not that many other good options, just depending on how people fall. And another con for snake drafts is sometimes the wait in between picks can be very frustrating. If you're the first or the last pick, sometimes it can be 20 minutes between each picks, and sometimes it can just get a little boring. Auction drafts. Auction drafts are a lot more involved, but just kind of real quick, everyone gets the same amount of money, let's say like $200. You use that money to buy your team. You do take turns bringing up players for auction, and then whoever the highest bidder is gets that player. That money gets deducted from their money, and then you just have to have $1 left for every roster position you haven't filled yet. But auction drafts, there's a lot more involved. You're going to need to check out the app to see the full description of auction drafts. But that is one of the things, is they are a lot more involved than snake drafts. So some of the pros, it's just more fair because every single owner has the potential to get every single player depending on how they want to build their team. So there's no big advantage to having the first overall pick like there would be in a snake draft in some leagues or some seasons. With auctions, there's more action. It's non-stop, and it's just, so much going on. You don't get bored. At any point, you can start bidding on a player or just kind of take a seat for a minute and take a breather, but so much more action going on in an auction draft. And another pro is there's just so much more strategy. There's so many different ways that you can try to build your team. You can try to buy like 3 or 4 guys for really high dollar amounts and try to find a bunch of sleepers, or just build kind of all middle of the road kind of guys and build a team that way. There's so much more flexibility and strategy in an auction draft. Some of the cons: the draft times typically take longer. There's just more going on. It's not a matter of just someone picking a player. A player gets brought up and then there's all the bidding that goes on. It can be somewhat difficult to grasp for newer people to fantasy. There's a lot going on already if you're trying to learn how to play fantasy football and how to do a draft, and when you put an auction draft on top of that, sometimes it can be overwhelming. And especially if you do a live auction draft, you're going to need an auctioneer. You're going to need someone that's controlling the draft and keeping it moving and doing the, saying sold and all that fun stuff. So there are some cons to auction drafts. Overall, auction drafts are a lot more fun in my opinion, especially live. But again, it does take more setup, more planning, and just they are just a little bit more involved in general. So those are the pros and cons of snake and auction drafts. Check out the app. And again, thank you to Fantasy Jocks. for sponsoring this video series. If you don't have any type of trophy or belt, or they have rings as well, check out fantasyjocks.com, and they got everything that you need for all that stuff, including loser prizes. And get on our site if you want to get into our forums and spark up some conversations. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Until next time.